Okay, well now I'm looking at it, but I can't see anybody else. We're gonna end that. We're gonna end that. Okay. You can no longer see, you can just see the on full screen, right?
Right, we're seeing your full screen.
Right.
That works. We can see your slides.
Oh, Austin's here. Hi, Austin.
Hi.
Great. I gotta figure out how I hit, there we go. Ah, I'm a Luddite for those who are wondering what the heck is going on. Um, but, all right. Anyways, I am Phil Ryan. I am the director of the Graduate Partnerships Program. You're here because you are going to graduate school soon or thinking about graduate school or maybe in your first year of graduate school and you want to figure out how to be successful in that. So the title of the talk that I have is Making a Successful Transition to Graduate School. But if you're already in graduate school, many of the things I'm about to talk to apply. Heck, honestly, anytime you're making a transition anywhere this applies, it's just tailored specifically to graduate school. So let's get right into it. I work best if this is somewhat interactive, so please ask questions. I don't know that I can see the chat because I've lost the meeting.
We can help out with that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Either Gil or I can help out.
Cool. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. Gail, Austin, interrupt me, let me know what's going on. You are all also completely free to take yourself off mic and ask questions, or off mute on mic and ask questions at any point. Like I said, I do a lot better when I know people are listening. This online thing, it's really not my preferred style of communication. But here we go anyways. So the first thing to keep in mind is that transitions are hard. It doesn't matter. If they're great transitions, they're hard. If they're bad transitions, they're hard. It doesn't really matter. And sometimes we let the excitement of this really cool transition come up, make us feel like it's wrong that it's hard, and it's not. Change in general is difficult, and transitions, especially significant ones like becoming a graduate student when you've been a postbac or a graduate student when you're an undergrad, it's a lot to deal with. You believe it or not, sometimes it's really hard to say goodbye to what you're leaving, especially if you're leaving undergrad, because I mean that's a lot of fun. And then you're going to graduate school, which is a lot of fun too, but it's a very different fun, and it's also much more like a job. And the responsibilities are much more like it. So you're saying goodbye to one stage of life and you're moving into a next. There's a lot of uncertainty, and as much as you might think you know what's coming up, you don't. And deep down, you know that. And so that transition again becomes difficult. And so allow yourself the freedom to know that the transitions are hard, and they're not just hard for you, they're hard for everybody. Other people just don't admit it or aren't aware of what they're going through. There's a ton to focus on, right? You're really keeping a lot of different things in the air. Those are personal changes, it's academic changes, it's science and research changes, it's your entire career, your personal, your professional life, everything is kind of being jostled and disrupted, right? And so if you want to be successful, you have to do what most of us don't either think about doing, we don't want to do, or is counterintuitive us for doing. That's to focus on ourselves, right? You really have to take care of yourself. In the OITE, you probably hear more than you want to that to be well, to do well, you have to be well. But it's true. The data really backs it up, right? You have to be able to take care of yourself. And to do that, you have to know what energizes you, what nurtures you, what excites you. At the end of the day, when you're exhausted, what helps you recuperate? When you are stressed out, what helps you relax a little bit? When you need a break, what is it that you do that is most fulfilling, right? And so you need to know what are those important non-work activities and hobbies that you have. You need to know how you deal with stress, right? And understand the difference between what we call eustress, which is that good amount of stress, that's the motivation to get working and get things done, and that distress, where now we're unable to focus, we're unable to be productive, we're unable to do the things we need to do because all we're doing is constantly focusing on the things that aren't going to go right, or haven't gone right. You need to understand your personal stress responses. And so Sometimes those are functional, right? Like when there's a deadline, man, I lock in. When I feel that pressure of a deadline, man, I cannot be distracted. However, when the deadline is too close and I can't get it all done, my dysfunctional approach is to procrastinate and run away. And so you need to know those so that you can be aware of what's happening with your body. You need to know your physical responses, right? Where do you carry your stress? Me, right here, right in the shoulders. When my shoulders are tensed up and starting to feel like I worked out when I didn't do anything, I know I'm having a negative stress response that I need to respond to. How do you personally stay resilient in the face of challenges, setbacks, disappointments? That's all part of graduate school. And then you need to know those head tapes or those automatic negative thoughts, these cognitive distortions. If you've taken or becoming a resilient scientist, you know what these are. We'll talk a little bit about them, but I just want to put out there that these imposter fears are ubiquitous. And when I say ubiquitous, I mean they really are everywhere, right? So if I put up this data and you look at it and give you a second, it says in the last months I have experienced imposter fears. I want you to look at that left-hand graph there. This is faculty and staff. These are PIs and staff scientists and staff clinicians. These are folks who already have the PhD, who have gone through their postdocs and are in career positions. These are the successful people that we all are about to work for in graduate school. And you're going to see that some 70% experience imposter fears most days or some days. And if you factor in, a few of days, you basically have everyone there. These are the ones that are there. These are the ones that have done it. These are the ones that have their positions. These are the ones that have trainees under them, and they're experiencing imposter fears. And if you look at the student responses, you'll see that 50% of them experience most days. Okay, so when you get into graduate school and all of a sudden that thought pops into your head that, you know what, you don't belong there, that I'm here by mistake, I'm an absolute fraud, the only way I'm here is because somebody wrote perfect letter of recommendation for me, what am I even doing? Understand that there's a 1 in 2 chance that the person next to you is having the exact same thought at the exact same time, and that it's okay, right? It's okay to have that thought, but you need to know how to speak back against it. Right. And so what is resilience? Resilience is the capacity to rise above adversity and forge lasting strengths in the struggle, right? Which basically means resilience is that ability to be able to take a step back and say, yes, this is hard, but I can do it, right? And to build that ability to push through those difficult times. At the heart of resilience is a belief in yourself, a belief that bad times are temporary, and a belief that you will learn something through the struggle. Resilience is cultivated. It is grown. It is like any other tool or technique you use. It's like any muscle in the body, right? The more you use it, the stronger it gets, and the more accurately you can use it, right? And it's cultivated by taking care of ourselves, finding and engaging in community, right? Remembering and using the resources that you have that are available to you. It's about increasing self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And it's learning to recognize and engage in that negative self-talk in a healthy way. Right. So in my family, we talk about these negative thoughts. We talk about name it, claim it, tame it. First thing you got to do is be able to name the negative thought. You need to be the negative emotion. Like, what is it? And then you need to claim it. Yes, that is exactly how I'm feeling. And it's okay to feel that way. That way you don't have the guilt. That way you don't have the shame associated with it. You know what? This is how I feel right now. And then we tame it. We take a look at the data and we say, is this justified or not? Right? Am I being accurate in my assessment of what is happening right now? Right. So some of this foundational material that we talk about in the Becoming a Resilient Scientist series, and I'm not going to do the whole series for those of you who are thinking, I've already taken this. This is really just, let me give you a few little things here, and then we're going to move into practical things about graduate school. But how do we take care of ourselves, both our thoughts and our feelings, right? And understanding what those are, what are our go-tos, right? What are the things we're most likely to slip into? Where are we going to let our mind going, or what's that, big emotion that we allow ourselves to have in difficult times? And then we need to understand our assertiveness skills. How do we advocate for what we need in life? in school. You need to build up that feedback resilience so that when you get the harsh feedback that maybe was delivered in a way that you just didn't like, how are you able to parse out the data and say, okay, here's what I need to take from that? Also, that was personal, therefore I'm going to just not deal with it right now because it's not necessary. It's not part of what's happening here. They have an issue, not me. And you need to have good mentoring, right? And we'll talk about mentoring more a little bit on and what that means in a graduate school sense. Okay, so practical things, right? Here's 3 things that I want you to think about in your transition. Take a vacation. Even if it's 1 week, 10 days, 2 weeks, do something fun. Go visit important people in your life or go do something completely on your own. If you're a beach person, go to the beach. You like the mountains? Go to the mountains. Get away from work and school. Trust me, it is waiting for you. It's not going anywhere. When you come back, it'll all still be there. Take a vacation. I know you're thinking, man, I got to finish my projects before I go to graduate school, and it's going to take me right up to that day. I promise you, the lab is going to continue after you leave. It is. Somebody else can finish that project for you, right? Somebody else can do those last 2 readings. Go on vacation. Go away. Recharge, right? Graduate school is going to be a long haul. Go do something fun. Move in advance to the start of graduate school. If your graduate program starts on August 31st, do not arrive August 28th on that Friday. Just don't do it. Right? You need time to get settled in. We'll talk about that too. And then right now, be thinking about your wellness and stress management practices. Have a plan for when you get there. How are you in this new setting going to take better care of yourself than you're doing now? Yes, I said better. Even if you're doing a great job now, do a better job there. So I said you need time to get settled in. And that is a really vague term because it really depends on what settled means to you. Right? But for a lot of people, it means figuring out all the really necessary things. Like, where's the grocery store? It's a really important thing to know. Is there a gym? You know what? If you like to work out, you need access to that type of thing. Is there a good running trail if you happen to be one of those people who runs? That's not me. You won't see me on the running trail. But if you're out there, that's great. I hope you enjoy it, right? To do this, you really need to use networks. And so you're going to a school, they have current students. Ask for their information to reach out and find out where is the best place to live, right? Think about what the school has for you. If you've gone through our well-being courses, you know that we talk about 4 quadrants of wellness. So that's your heart, your mind, your body, and your spirit. Make sure that you are setting yourself up for success in all 4 quadrants, right? What do you need to be successful in that? If you feel like you've got a great balance now, what are you doing? How are you going to make sure that you have those exact same things there when you move, right? If you have a therapist here, how are you going to find one there, right? This is, really important to be thinking about. I have all these things here to help me be successful. I need to have those things there too. Get them set up well before you go. Your university and program folks can be really helpful. There's student health, there's career services, there's rec centers, but just make sure you understand the health insurance that you have, right? So most graduate schools will provide some type of health insurance for you, and it is probably really great in a short radius around that school. And then outside of that, you're getting outside a network. So you need to figure out how it works so that you can get the services that you need. Make sure that you ask for recommendations from your current healthcare providers. So here's what we know about graduate school. And how do we know it? Mainly because we ask graduate students all the time. But some key concepts to keep in mind, right? The lack of structure for graduate school can be challenging. If you're coming straight from undergrad, it is likely that you knew exactly the classes that you were going to take in what semester, with which professors, and you knew once you signed up for those classes that every Tuesday at 8 a.m. you were going to be in some dank basement listening to somebody talk about genetics while you dozed off. Okay, so that was me in undergrad. But like that structure was there and it's comforting and it's supporting. Graduate school is not like that. Yes, you will have some classes likely in your first, maybe even your second year. After that, it's research. And if you've done full-time research, it doesn't care about your structure. It doesn't. It's going to do what it's going to do, and you're going to have to adapt. And that lack of structure can be really challenging, especially when you just want to get your proposal done and turned in. Right? Or you just want to have things ready for your next committee meeting so you can convince them that it's time for them to let you defend your dissertation, right? Graduate school is highly independent, right? And so that independence is often expected, and that can be a bit of a shock. Good mentors will ease you into the independence, but know that there is that expectation when you get into graduate school that you're going to grow in that independence. And feedback from PIs, let's just be honest, can be infrequent and often very critical. It's not that they're trying to be mean. It's just that that's how they got feedback. And so that's how they give feedback. And so that feedback resilience that we talked about before is really important. But also understanding your communication styles, understanding your PI's communication styles, so that you can reconcile those two and hear in your voice what the PI is trying to tell you. Because of these things, self-directed students usually succeed better than those who are passive. Passive students who do not know how to advocate for themselves, to ask for what they need, often struggle in graduate school. Learning about and using resources really is the key to your success. Everyone's probably thinking, oh, I know these 3 graduate students and they don't use any resources. All they do is go to lab and they're doing great. Okay, what you don't see is the 97 students that are struggling because they're not using those resources or who are not like that. And just because it works for one person doesn't mean it has to work for you, right? Use your resources. Develop good relationships with your cohort, with your classmates. Develop good relationships with the other people in your research group. Your program directors, your program administration. Honestly, the admin assistant for your program director is probably going to be your best friend. And I still remember Mark from 25 years ago. And the fact that if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have been able to graduate. He's an amazing guy. He's retired. He's out in Palm Springs. We still keep in touch. Know the key important people that are going to help you get through it, right? And then you are going to see this a couple of times and you're probably going to try and ignore it, but I'm going to hope that you don't. Picking the right mentor is the single most important decision in graduate school. It's not about the project. It's about the relationship that you have with your mentor and how that drives the project. Okay? We will talk more about that in just a moment. So here are the top 5 pieces of advice. Where did we get these? We asked program directors, we asked graduate students, we compiled them, and we put them in the order that we wanted to, if we're just being honest. 1, ask for help. And understand the power of the words, I don't know. Okay? You are not expected to know everything. And if you try to make something up in graduate school and it is obvious that you're making it up, it is going to be to your detriment. The words, I don't know, but I'll find out, are extremely powerful and empowering. You don't need to know everything. That's why you're in school. You're there to learn. Right? If you knew everything, there'd be no point in you going to school. Right? Don't be afraid to ask for help. Right? If it's a programmatic thing and it's on the website, though, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to roll my eyes if you send me an email and you're in my programs and you ask something that you could have looked up. I'm going to answer it. I'm going to be nice, but know you're going to get an eye roll out of me that you're never going to see. And that's the same thing at every program, right? If you can look it up, just look it up. Okay. But if you can't find it, then ask. But read the website. Building community and a support system, right? This is both inside and outside of school. You are holistic people. You are whole. You are not your school. You have interest outside of research, is my guess. Make sure that you have a community that supports those as well. Make friends within your cohort, not exclusively, because sometimes you want to go out and talk about something completely not related to science. The friends within the cohort thing is absolutely essential. So in my program, there were 6 of us, and we had lunch every Thursday. It was a standing date lunch every Thursday. Of course, you didn't make it every week, but there was a core group of us who went. Sometimes other people tagged along. Sometimes 1 or 2 people couldn't make it. But I just had coffee with 3 of those. So 4 out of 6 of us are still going to coffee today. And I graduated a long time ago, as you can tell by the white in my beard, right? Make those friends. They're absolutely essential as you hit the really hard parts of graduate school. Get information on student groups and clubs. Focuses on what you have and what you love to do. Again, if you're content, if you're happy, if you're thriving now, what is it right now that is helping you be successful that you can make sure that you have then as well? Um, Develop your resilience now. I mean, I know you all probably start graduate school here soon, but if you haven't yet gone through some of the videos that we have on becoming a resilient scientist, do it. Understand that power of that word yet, that growth mindset, and then learn to bounce back for failures. And for the 3 people in here who are probably about to tell me that this icon is upside down, yes, I am aware, but it drove me crazy that corner wasn't in line with this corner down here. And so I flipped it over. Remember self-care and wellness. Okay. You have hobbies. There are things that you like to do that are not science, right? Maybe you play the guitar or the piano. Maybe you go running. Maybe you're a bird watcher. Maybe you love to identify bird calls. Whatever it is, do it when you're in graduate school as well. You need to exercise, eat well, sleep. I know most of you are thinking, yeah, right, sleep. Trust me, sleep is absolutely essential for your success. One of my old classmates actually is a sleep expert researcher for the Army, and she's got some really cool data. Take time for yourself, and if you need it, seek therapy. All right, most important point, number 1. Picking the right mentor is the single most important decision you will make. I told you were going to hear it again. Man of my word, right? Understand that the match for the personality, the fit, the understanding how you like to be mentored, how you like to be supervised needs to match with the PI's ability and style in mentoring. Okay. Because if you are the type of person who likes to sit down and have a really long conversation, who uses a lot of words, and your PI is the type of person who says, yes, no, do this, over time, that's going to be a problem. Right? So make sure that you are matching with your mentor. It really is the most important decision you will make. I tell people all the time. There were points in my graduate research where I did not want to go and do the research. I didn't. It had been failing for months and months and months, and I was tired of failing. And the reason that I got up every morning and I went into lab was because of my relationship with my PI and his ability to speak my language and say, yes, that sucks. It happens to everyone. I promise we're going to get through it together. Just keep going. Right. And here I am with those 3 little letters after my name. Right. And if it weren't for Stan, I'm not sure I would have made it through. Okay. When choosing a thesis advisor, it's natural to envision your best days, but it's important to think about your worst days too. A lot of times graduate students come to me and they want to act like the deterioration in the relationship is entirely on the PI. And then after we have a bit of a conversation, it turns out that, you know what, on your worst days, you can be pretty bad too, right? Find grace, but think about the type of person that's going to see you at your worst and still be able to see your best at that time. Okay, so we're going to talk about getting settled into your new program, right? This is your to-do list. Any questions before we go into this? I can't even see the number of people still in the room, so I don't know if you've all dropped off. But
No,
if no questions,
no
oh,
questions in the chat right now.
no questions in the chat. Thanks, Gail. All right, well, then let's talk about your to-do list as you get settled in. Attend orientation and the new student events. Okay, now I know for undergrad this was very uncool and you shouldn't do it. For graduate school, it's essential. Go. Really. That's all I'm gonna say. Just do it. If you're like, but I'm an introvert and I don't like people. Hey, guess what? I'm an introvert too. Go. It's worth it. Meet people. I know we just covered the fact that maybe you don't like people. Do it anyways. Go meet people. Networking is essential. Building that community is essential, right? Meet the faculty, meet the program leadership, meet the students and the administrators. Be sure that you clearly understand the program requirements. Get the handbook. right? Get the handbook that exists when you start, because in most programs, that's the handbook that will govern as you go through. You are usually what they call grandfathered into any changes in that program book. So make sure you have the one that is in place the day that you start your program. Keep it. Keep it in multiple places because you're going to lose one, right? But keep it so that you understand the program requirements. Because understand you're responsible for meeting those program requirements. Again, this isn't undergrad where someone's going to say, oh, you actually need 3 more credits in this particular field. That's not how that works, right? You're required for this. You might be able to go ask and say, hey, am I in good standing? And they might say, hey, you're going to take these classes. But when it comes to how often you have to have committee meetings, who needs to be on that committee, like what paperwork you need to fill out that says you had a committee meeting and who needs to sign it, it's all in the handbook. And you're required to make sure that you know it. Choose your courses with an eye toward requirements, but also if you have some elective room, where are your gaps? Right? Do you not know enough about biochemistry and you're going into a neuroscience program, and perhaps that neuroscience program is going to have a lab in it that you want to work in that has some biochemical aspects to it? Take a biochemistry class. Never thought I would ever tell anybody to take a biochemistry class as an elective, but there you go. But also, like, what's fun, right? Jump on one of these like kind of hot topic new technologies or whatever and take a class in that too, just because it's fun. Make choices about rotations with an open mind. So what I mean by that is if you go into graduate school and you're like, I already know who I want to work with, but I have to do rotations. Actually, go into that rotation thinking this might be the place. Because I've been doing this a long time, and there's been a number of times where people come in and they're like, I know exactly where I'm going. And by the end of rotations, they don't want to go there anymore. Not because it was bad, but they just found someplace even better. And then they feel bad about it because like, oh, well, I already decided that I wanted to go here, but I really want to go here. And I'm like, no, go where makes you happy, right? So keep an open mind when you're in those rotations. And then find the counseling and career centers, the rec center, the student groups. We've kind of covered all that. Okay, so here's some helpful tips. Find your accountability. That means, do you need a study group? I did, right? If it weren't for my study groups, passing those qualifying exams would have been really difficult, right? Find the people who are going to make sure that you're doing what you need to be successful. Find your community, right? Find your people, as my kids like to say. Talk to older students who already know how the system works. They maybe even know which professors you might want to avoid if you can in certain classes. They might know what forms need to be filled out and turned out when. They might want to tell you who not to be on your committee, right? The older students have some wisdom that they can pass down to you. Understand the principle of confirmation bias, right? So if you go in thinking that you're going to love one lab, you are more likely to tell yourself that you love that lab because you thought you were going to love that lab. Just saying. Be kind to yourself. Guess what? You're going to struggle in graduate school. And for some of you, it's going to be the first time in your life where you've really struggled, right? It's gonna be the first time where anything's actually really been hard. That wasn't the case for me. But some of my classmates, valedictorian, top of their class in undergrad, they came to graduate school and guess what? Man, research is hard. Research fails a lot. And they really struggled with that, right? They had never really encountered difficulties in their academic career up until graduate school. And that was a really hard thing for them. Luckily, they had me to talk about what it's like to be, to fail and struggle, and I can help them through it, right? So have that community, it's there. Talk about whether you have research assistantships or TA assistantship requirements and get the advice on how to start that. So now we're going to go into the section about controlling the angst, and you're going to see this poor bee over and over again. But I thought he was adorable, so I added him to the slides. Okay, so first thing to do to control the angst about going into graduate school is understand that there is a lot to learn in and out of the lab. And when I say there's lots to learn, I mean, look at this list. And this is not a conclusive list. There are lots and lots and lots of things that you need to learn in many different areas. But here are 2 questions for you. How do you like to learn new things? And what can you learn right now that can decrease the load later? Right? If you struggle with time management, now's a good time to pick up a time management book and figure out how can I be better with my time management. So you're not trying to figure it out at the end of semester one when finals are coming and your rotation report is due, and you're still trying to figure out those experiments so that you leave a good impression so that you might be able to join that lab, right? So what can you do now, and how do you like to learn? And that's important because hopefully you can then set these things up to do that, right? So start addressing them now. You've heard it probably 100 times if you've been to OITE, but that accurate self-assessment is key, right? We always say tackle time management and stress management first. They really are the keystones to everything else. Find and attend workshops at your school and in your community. Again, it's a great way to meet people and build a network. But generally speaking, workshop speakers are good people to follow up with and get to know. Okay. If some of these things aren't available at your school, pick up a book. There's lots of online resources. Don't forget we have a YouTube page, has a lot of resources. And also, like, you can ask your program directors to sponsor some workshops. I can tell you that a lot of things offered here in OITE started because fellows came along and they're like, hey, it'd be really cool if you did this. And we're like, that would be cool. And then we did it. Right. So don't be afraid to ask your program directors if they can sponsor some workshops, bring in some speakers, or develop something themselves. Okay. Let's acknowledge that mentoring matters a lot and that it can sometimes be difficult to develop quality mentoring relationships, and that that conflict is going to happen. It just is, and that it can be difficult to deal with that conflict, especially in the workplace, especially as a graduate student, because now you're in the same lab for 4 to 5 years, and your graduation depends on that project being successfully completed, right? So there's a little more importance to maintaining that great work environment. And conflict is going to happen. So how do you deal with it? So I want to give you a little bit of wisdom. Wisdom that when I share with principal investigators, they usually come up afterwards and thank me for it. Okay. There are two things here. There are supervisors and there are mentors, and the roles are distinctly different. Okay. A supervisor is someone who directs the work of another person, and they're responsible for ensuring that someone does their job. The responsibility of the supervisor is to the institution, right? So your PI is a supervisor, right? And their responsibility is to their section, their department, to the university, whatever, to make sure that the science goes on. You are there working, and so they need to ensure that you get the job done so the science moves forward. That's the role of a supervisor. A mentor is someone who passes on skills, knowledge, and wisdom to another person. They work to help develop someone else's career. Now, we all want our PIs to also be a mentor. Somebody who's not just saying, go do that experiment and get this paper out, but somebody who says, you need to learn how to read the paper and get the information so that you can think about experiments that need to come next. Let me help you do that. Also, what do you want to do with your career? Let me introduce you to some people. Okay. Here's the truth. All PIs are supervisors. Not all are mentors. And even the ones that are both great supervisors and great mentors will at some point experience something that we call role tension. That is when they want to both be a great supervisor and a great mentor, but those two things are going to take them in different directions. And they have to decide which role is more important, the one that makes sure that the work gets done or the one that supports your career. And that is a very difficult position for many PIs to be in, and it causes them stress. It causes them anxiety. Your understanding of that allows you to be understanding when your PI gets in those role tension moments. And that can help with every conflict that ever happens between you all. Excuse me, with my coughing, I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but I'm going to blame it on pollen levels. All right.
There's a quick question in the chat that's actually you might cover on this next slide.
Okay.
But it's about PI that's asking whether or not to directly work with them immediately, or instead of doing rotations, and the pros and cons of selecting a direct sort of offer.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can get to that. Um, is this Spencer's?
Yes, it is.
The PI that I think I want to work with offered to start working with him directly immediately instead of doing rotations. How do you weigh the pros and cons of doing directed versus rotations? Well, um, I think for me, I think the pros for doing a rotation um, outweigh the cons, right? I mean, the pros are you get to start the project sooner. In theory, you might graduate sooner, although we don't have any data that actually supports that. You don't have to like you jump right in. You put aside that uncertainty of who you're going to work with because now it's there. The downside is this person might be a really bad person and a terrible mentor and a bad supervisor. And we're gonna kind of get to the different types of PIs and what they would be. And they also might be a great person that's a bad fit for you. And so like the value of a rotation is that you get to find out, is it the right fit? Is it the right science? Is it the right personality match? And so for me, I think if the PI is willing to be like, hey, I want to jump into this, say like, I would love that too, but I also want to make sure this is a really good fit for both of us. I prefer to do the rotation. If they say no, consider that a data point. Why would they not want to make sure it's the right fit? Why would they not want you to have options? I will leave that there and say no more. But think about that. If a person's like, you join now or you don't join, there might be a reason for that. Okay, so two absolute truths. Choosing the right dissertation lab can be a make or break for your graduate experience. And labs or research groups and PIs are not one size fits all. So I've said it before, there are some people who are great mentors for certain people and really bad mentors for other people. It has to be the right fit. And so if we line up PIs, we usually see something like this. There are great mentors. They can mentor anybody. They can adjust their mentoring to fit anybody's mentoring needs. At the NIH, we have a few of these. I can actually think of them off at the top of my head that it doesn't really matter how the student works. The mentor figures out a way to help them be successful. They are like unicorns, though. They're rare. Okay. There are a lot of good mentors. And good mentors means that for the right style, they have a mentoring style. And for those people, it works really, really well. And if it doesn't work, they're not heartbroken. They don't take it personal. They don't hold it against someone. They just say, hey, this isn't a good match. Let's find you a good place to go. Right? Those are good mentors. Then there are good enough mentors, which you know what, you'll get through graduate school, you'll probably be successful, but you're not going to exchange Christmas cards at the end of it. And you might even like be at the end of it and being when they come to talk to you and say, hey, did you do this experiment? You say, it's in the lab notebook. And that's the, kind of extent of your relationship. Nobody wants that for graduate school, right? You want to have a good relationship with your PI. There are non-mentors, and then unfortunately there are tormentors. Now, tormentors generally start to get a reputation. And I always say that you should do at least a 6-week rotation because just about anybody can hide their true self for 3 to 4 weeks. But after that, you're going to see what's really there. A lot of them will put on a lot of sugar coating, you know. But after a while, that starts to fade off and you get to see who the person really is. And so this is kind of that goes back to that warning of why wouldn't they want you to have an opportunity to assess their mentoring style? These tormentors, they're rare. They're out there. Talk to the graduate students that are there. They probably know who they are. And if you get them out at the pub one night and ask them, they will tell you. Understand that the program directors, as much as they would love to be able to tell you to avoid a certain faculty member, they have to continue to work with said faculty member. And so they need to be careful about that. So you're more likely to get an honest opinion from a past graduate student who has left the program, second, a graduate student who's still in the program, and then third, maybe your program director. Give me 1 second here. So here's the process, and it's iterative, right? You need to know yourself. What are your skills, interests, and values? What are your communication styles? How do you like to be corrected? How do you like to be challenged? How do you deal with conflict? Right. Then you need to know the options of investigators out there and what their communication styles are like. Does the science line up? If all of that's good, then you do a rotation. If you do a couple rotations and you consider your options, and then you choose a lab. And then it all goes great, it all goes wonderful. You graduate, and then you move on to a postdoc, and you do this whole thing over again, right? And so you'll notice that everything kind of starts with knowing yourself and this self-knowledge, right? And so to do that, to understand how you work, reflect on previous mentoring relationships and research environments. What did you like? What didn't you like? If you liked everything, maybe stop and be a little bit more critical and think maybe there was something that you liked less, right? But what was it that really energized you and drove you, and go look for something like that? What things didn't you like that really stole your energy? And then avoid those things, right? Consider your science goals, including the type of work you want to do and the techniques you wish to learn. Consider your work style and personality. Let me put one thing when it says, think about your science goals and your career goals. It doesn't mean that, one day I want to run a lab in this field X. That doesn't mean that you have to do your graduate work in X, right? In graduate school, what you're really learning to do is to be a great researcher. And you can learn that just about anywhere, right? So if you have the opportunity to learn to be a great researcher in a field that's a little adjacent to what you want to do, it's worth it, because then you can go get a postdoc doing exactly what you want to do. But now you know how to be a great researcher. So now you're doing a fantastic job as a postdoc, and then you can start your lab in that field. Right. So this is why we say that the relationship with the mentor is more important than the science, because in graduate school, you're learning to be a great researcher, to do great science. You can apply that in any field. And if you want to continue on in academic science, you can go into a postdoc and pick up that field and then carry on. And if you want to not stay in academic research, you still learn how to be a great researcher. Those of us in OIT who don't do science in the lab anymore, we still actually use a lot of the skills that we developed then. Know your options. So generate a list of possible research groups. Set up appointments to talk with the PI. Remember, you are both selling yourself and interviewing the PI. You want to get information from the PI about how they work too. Ask them about their mentoring style. Ask them how they like to communicate. Ask how often they meet with their students. Ask them where previous students went. If they don't know, that means they don't care. I'm just going to throw it out there. Talk to students and past students, postdocs, research staff in the group. Ask open-ended questions. Don't ask yes or no questions. If you ask yes or no questions, you will get yes or no answers. And the truth of the matter is those carry very little information. Pay attention to how people answer the questions. When I was interviewing for postdocs, I went out and everyone that I asked questions about gave really muted answers, right? I was like, oh, do you really enjoy working here? Yeah, I like the work. If that's one person, maybe that's their communication style. When it hits 5 and they're all like, yeah, sure. I was like, nobody's happy here. I mean, this is obvious, right? I asked about how supported they feel. Oh, yeah, I feel supported. No more information, nothing else, no body language, right? And so pay attention to all the data. If you can, attend one of the research group meetings, and that lets you see the interaction of the group and things like that. Take your time. Right. Here's that truth at the bottom. It says you will likely not break the mold. If you are like, man, I love this science, and someone's like, we've had to move 5 graduate students out of the lab. In fact, no student who's ever started in that lab have finished their dissertation in that lab. Guess what? You are not likely to be number 1. I know you're all very special, okay? But you're not likely to break the mold of a bad mentor. So if the data is all telling you, I'm not going to be successful here because nobody has been successful here, listen to the data, right? What matters academically and scientifically? The research area and the approaches used. Stable funding. Boy, that is a hot topic right now, huh? For you and your science. What's their mentoring track record? Like I said, ask them where their past students are now. Look at the publication record, because especially if you're joining a tenure track lab, you want to know whether or not they're going to get tenured, right? So figure out the time frame, and if they're up for tenure in 2 years or so, and you're going to be entering your 3rd year, and they haven't really produced anything yet, Just know the risks. Okay. Lab space, size, composition, that career level. Like I said, tenure track investigators, there is that risk of them not being tenured. However, they are generally more hands-on. They're more excited, right? They are just really energized about research. But also, most of them haven't really ever supervised anybody before. They've mentored, but never supervised, right? And so they're figuring out their style in that. And so you have to be flexible if you're going to join that lab. A senior scientist probably have stable funding. They certainly probably have tenure. They might have lost a little bit of their enthusiasm and excitement. They're not running around being like, "Oh, have you seen this? We should try this. We should try this," which can be great for a graduate student too, because if you try too many things, you don't do enough to graduate, right? But like, um, you know, think about the different styles. Also, a lot of senior scientists are like, "This is who I am, accept it or not," and that can be a great data point. Look at the collaborators that the labs have. Those are always really helpful for building that network, especially when you're thinking about next steps. What matters more than the science and academics is those interpersonal issues that we talked about. Communication styles are absolutely essential. So I have been running the GPP for many, many years, working in it and meeting with students. And 7 out of 10 times when a graduate student comes to me and is having issues with their PI, it's a communication error. It's not a bad PI. It's not a bad graduate student. It's the fact that they are not understanding what the other person is saying because their communication styles don't match. So learn about communication styles. Learn theirs and yours and how you can translate from what you hear them saying to what they're actually saying. And the same way, communicate in a way that they can understand what you're saying. You're probably thinking, why is that my responsibility? Because your PI already has the job that they want and you don't. Okay. Temperament, personality matters, right? Some people, when they get stressed, are yellers. Do you want to be in that environment? Do you not care? How interactive is the group? Do they all have lunch together every day? Right? That type of stuff. The level of involvement in the student's project. You would hope that that's going to change again as you grow. They're going to give you more independence. But it's fair to ask, especially if it's a young investigator that's never had a graduate student before, right? How is your mentoring going to change as I progress through graduate school and grow in my understanding and strength? Like, how are you going to grant me more independence? Think about how often and accessible they are. Open door policy versus, meeting once a week, a couple times a month. What does that look like? All of those things are really, really important. We have a really great website, actually, that talks about thoughts on mentorings. It has ways to ask questions, what questions you want to ask about mentors. How do you find out who the mentors are? So I think the slides will be sent out. But anyways, you can just go to our website and search mentors and it'll take you right there too. Okay, so some thoughts on making it work. From the very, very beginning, in fact, when you rotate, discuss expectations, goals, and progress, and then revisit it often. Science changes as you do it because you have to go where the data leads you. You might have an idea where things are going, and then you get a curveball. So you want to be able to discuss those expectations, the goals, and the progress early and often, all the way through. Define standard meeting times and styles suited to you and your mentor. Cultivate the relationships with many mentors. So you need mentors for your science, absolutely, but you need mentors for your career also, because your PI probably knows how to do one thing, and that's be a PI. And if you don't want to be a PI, you need mentors that can help you do what it is you want to do, and mentors that can help you explore so you can figure out what you want to do, right? You also need mentors for you personally and other aspects of your life, right? Again, you are more than just a scientist, right? What else about you needs to be cultivated? Find mentors for that. Your committee can be an excellent source of mentors. Get to know your teachers in the relevant courses. Again, if there's a really cool workshop, that speaker, follow up with them, see if you can develop a relationship with them. I've actually had many people who have seen my talks who connect with me on LinkedIn and ask if we can meet. I've met with some of them quite regularly. So like, think about who can provide the mentorship that you need as you move through your program. Get involved in training activities, and then find support to deal with the disappointments The fact of the matter is that life is full of them. It's full of amazing, awesome things as well. But we don't really need to know how to deal with the awesome things. We just need to learn how to overcome some of these disappointments to continue making awesome things. All right, back to my cute little bee here. All right. Um, the
Oh,
truth of
Phil,
graduate school. Oh, yeah.
we just have a question in the chat that's, I think, related to the past slide that was about navigating an environment where you already know some of the mentor strengths and weaknesses. Can you see the chat, or do you want me to read it?
Yeah, I just pulled it up. I figured out how to
Okay,
toggle
perfect.
back and forth. I've
Awesome.
caught up to like 2012 on computers. Um, Uh, I'm in the lab. I'm joining from my PhD. Canadian programs are direct entry only. Past and present students have had mixed experiences. Do you have any tips for navigating an environment where you already know some of the mentoring strengths and weaknesses of the PI? Yeah, so I do. Right. So again, communication styles are absolutely essential. Figure out yours, figure out your PIs. Some of this can I'll try to be really brief here. Are we done 4:30? Yeah, 4:30. So we got time. Okay, so think about like the MBTI a little bit, right? And think about extrovert versus introvert. So I've had experiences where a graduate student came in once and was like, "My PI hates me," and I'm like, "You're like the nicest person in the world. How does your PI hate you?" Then I remembered that I knew his PI, and his PI was one of the nicest guys in the world. And I was like, "I don't understand what's going on here." And the student's like, I get, a result. I get really excited. I rush into his office. I show him the data. And then I say, what do you think? And he just looks at me and goes, what do you think? Knowing the PI, I knew he was a huge introvert and that this graduate student was just absolutely terrifying him, right? He didn't know how to respond. He needs time to think, right? He's very much an analytical person, thinks before he speaks. Yeah, he was trying to like meet the student on their level and whoo, it wasn't working, right? And so understanding simple things like that. Do they prefer that you send the data ahead of time and say, hey, I'd like to set up a meeting to discuss this? Or do they want you to come bounding into their office like Tigger, super excited and be like, hey, look at this cool result I got. Understanding those things and adjusting your style to that can be really big. The other thing is to understand how their brain works, right? And so some people communicate very directly, that their focus is on productivity versus the relationship, and so it's like they just say what's on their mind and what they want. And people who care a lot about the relationship and less about productivity can be really offended by that. And they just don't understand. They think the person hates them because they're using 6 words instead of 500. And so like are you an external processor? Do you like to use a lot of words to get to the point, or are you just and understanding those differences so that you don't take offense at the way somebody communicates. It's their natural style, right? They're not actually being mean. They're not actually saying something terrible to you. It just feels that way because of your communication style. Can you step out of that? Think about what they're saying, put that into a language you understand, digest it, and then figure out how can you communicate back to them. Right. So those communication styles are really important. Also, their preferred supervisorial style, right? Again, some PIs love it when you bring them data, and others are like, look, we have lab meeting 9 to 10 every day on Monday, and that's enough for you to show me your data, right? And how are you going to work in that? And the other thing is if you have needs that PI can't meet, find somebody else who can, right? Multiple mentors are an absolute essential thing. And you have to be careful because no, you can't take your data to another PI without your PI's permission. But maybe there's a postdoc in the group or a staff scientist or the lab technician that's been working there for 30 years, right? Find somebody that can meet those needs for you. I hope that answered your question, Adam. Any other questions while we're here on break? Awesome. Austin, thanks for telling me about that. Okay, here's the truth about graduate school. It's easy to get isolated and to certainly feel isolated. Um, and so graduate students who are successful are proactive at avoiding this. Right. And so I'm gonna throw it out there. Look, I know science attracts people that we like to feel like we can be independent, like we like to work on our own projects. But the truth of the matter is that once we get isolated and then we start to struggle, there's no one there to help pull us out of that spiral. Okay. So be proactive. find ways to hold on to a couple of hobbies, right? Um, Group activities are a good option. Do you have a running group, hiking group, bird watching group? Do you have a game night with people? Do you have a chess club? A band that you play with, some activity where you're out amongst people. Focus on what sustains you, and please understand that drinking and happy hour are not hobbies. And if it gets to the point where you think that maybe it's become one, that might be time to think about how you can get help in avoiding that. Um, Graduate students in the biomedical sciences do struggle with depression and anxiety at a much higher rate than the standard population. And so you have to be aware of that and not fall into the detrimental habits that can drag you away, right? And then find supports and understands. Student groups, therapists, check in with student health, counseling services. And so the director of graduate studies can be a good resource for some of these supports and information. It's actually a pretty golden time to be going to graduate school, because when I was in graduate school, nobody knew or cared about that. It was the tough that survived, right? We provided our own support to one another, and that's awesome. But you all are going to a time where there's very few programs in the western part of the world that don't understand that you all are people and that you have needs, and that this is a hard time of life, right? But you need to be proactive in making sure that you have a community that supports you. Okay. So as you are in graduate school, most likely you're going to be checking out the job market. And if you're doing that right now, stop. Uh, it's not the best time we've ever seen, if we're just being perfectly honest, but you all have 4, 5, maybe 6 years before you have to worry about it. Now, I know somebody said they're in an MS program, so you have 1 to 2 years. I think that you will see by then an upward trend in the markets and the jobs. And I get it. It's scary sometimes when you take a look at it. So be preparing the whole time, right? Have some career planning starting now. It helps provide focus and structure to a process that can seem endless and unstructured, right? It helps you prioritize your graduate school time. Please also understand that something like 60% of graduate students change their career plan in their third year. Not by their third year, in their third year. Okay? And that happens because you learn about jobs you didn't know about. New jobs that didn't exist before now do. But also, like, you get into your third year and you're like, you know what? Maybe I don't like research as much as I thought. And that's okay, right? But as you are doing career planning and thinking about what's out there, it can help you prioritize what to do with your time, right? It helps you choose those research directions as well. And then it can help you pick a better postdoc or to not do a postdoc. So you guys are starting to see a pattern in some of these planning things, right? Know yourself, know the options, build the credentials and make connections, look for a job, get a job, start the process over again. Look, very few people start in the mailroom and work their way up to the C-suite anymore. In fact, I'm going to guess most of you didn't understand what I just said when I said start in the mailroom and work your way up to the C-suite. Right. So that used to be the way things worked. You joined a company, you worked hard, you promoted in that company, and you stayed there pretty much for your entire career. Nobody does that anymore, right? You're going to go, you're going to do a job, and then you're going to look for advancement. And if it's not in that company, you're going to go someplace else and you're going to do a lateral step and then you're going to climb. And all of this is going to come down to you knowing your interest, your skills, your values. What is it you want to do? What is important to you? What are the options for meeting all those things? Building the credentials to get those jobs, applying for the jobs, and then getting the job, and then you're going to do it all over again, right? Now, even in OITE, I have been in OITE since 2011, which makes us going on 15 years come this, I think, October. But I have not done the same thing in OIT the entire time. And it hasn't even been so much of a ladder climb, right? It's been me knowing what I wanted to do. It's been finding opportunities. It's been doing them. It's been building my skills. It's been taking workshops and seminars and certifications. It's been saying, hey, I want to do this, being told no, looking for another job and saying, hey, I found this other job. And then my boss saying, okay, so you wanted to do this. Do you want to stay and do it? Right? Like, This is a process, and it's an iterative process, and you're going to do it over and over again. And it always starts with knowing yourself, as much as you probably are tired of hearing me say that. So, what are some career steps you can take right now? Well, attend career development workshops with an open mind. We have the Career Symposium coming up, and you're like, well, they say it's for graduate students and postdocs. It is. Go anyways. Listen to the career panels. Figure out what jobs are out there. Think, hey, that's cool. And then think about how you're going to develop those. Build your network. Build it. Do it. I know, generally speaking, that scientists aren't known for the networking skills. Develop them. Okay. Meet seminar speakers. Get involved in hosting speakers. Invite people. Do the little extra responsibilities because they're really important for building that network. Use professional meetings to build your network. The big meetings are usually incredibly overwhelming, but there are smaller portions of that you can go to. But also, I found that the small meetings at like Cold Spring Harbor were much more useful for me than AACR with the hundreds of thousands of people it felt like running around. Okay. And then do informational interviews if a career path intrigues you and you want to get more information. Present posters and talks whenever possible. Okay. And when you present a poster, don't think of it as a presentation of like your science, like you're giving a talk, right? Poster presentations should be conversations, right? That's how relationships start. If you watch a good poster presenter, they leave enough out that the person's going to ask questions so that you can engage with them and you can go back and forth. You can talk about ideas and you can say, hey, that's a really great idea. I'd love to follow up with you after the poster session. Can I get your email or your LinkedIn or whatever you're passing around these days, right? Mentor undergrads and summer interns when the time is right. Your first year in graduate school is not the right time. I'm just going to put that out there. And if you have qualifying exams coming up, it's not the right time. But after that, find opportunities to mentor others. Okay. So, how do we balance the work-life integration? Okay. I don't like the term work-life balance because it implies that perhaps work and life are diametrically opposed to each other, and I don't think that's true. I like to think of it more as overlapping circles. How much of your life circle do you want taken up with work? Right? That's the balance that you're really looking at. Okay. And so how are you going to do that? You're going to do it by managing your priorities, your goals, and your time. So we talk a lot about interest, skills, and values. This is a heavy on your values, right? What really matters to you the most? So I'll give you an example of why I left the lab. Okay, the work that I did in the lab was a lot of protein purification. If you've ever done protein purification, you know those columns run however fast they want to run. And you don't know until you start it. Could be 3 hours, could be 8 hours. My wife and I were starting a family, and what was important to me then was to be home in time for dinner. I wanted to know that I could be home for dinner so that I could sit down and hear about my wife's day. I could hear about my kids' days. That was important to me. And that wasn't going to happen with the research I was doing. Right? So I reassessed my values, my interests, and I found other work. And I love it. Right? But you have to know yourself to do that and be willing to accept the trade-offs. Right? I went into graduate school because I wanted to be a big time PI, wanted to have my name last on those articles. I wanted people to say, did you read the Ryan paper? I had to give that up. I have no regrets. In fact, I'm senior author on a paper on a training program. Okay, so there is a Ryan paper out there. Sleep well, eat well, find time for yourself. Uh, I know that it sounds trite, but it's true, right? To do well, you have to be well. We say it over and over again because it's true. Learn how to set goals and establish priorities. Learn to say no, but say no wisely. I'm going to give you a real nugget here. So pay attention. If you zoned out, zone back in for a second. The best way to learn to say no is to ask, can I think about that and get back to you tomorrow? When somebody says, hey, do you want to take on this new project? Can I think about it and get back to you tomorrow? It gives you time to weigh whether or not you really have capacity for it, but then it automatically sets that person up to anticipate you saying no. So that when you do the next day come back and say, I don't think I can do that, they're already prepared for it. And if you can say yes, you're like a hero, right? They're super excited now. They were expecting a no and they got a yes. Who doesn't love that, right? So learning to say, can I think about that for a little bit and get back to you tomorrow is a great way to learn to say no, right? But also learn when to say yes. The reason that I have the career that I have is because I said yes to a lot of opportunities. Then I had too much on my plate and I had to learn to say no. Okay? And then learn where you waste time. Are you a doom scroller? Right? All of a sudden you look up and it's 3 hours later and your anxiety levels through the roof, right? Maybe it's time to get rid of Twitter or X or Blue Sky or whatever it is, right? Are you a mobile gamer, right? Where you're sitting there playing a game on your phone and all of a sudden it's dark and you didn't even notice. Figure out where you waste your time. Do it now. Get rid of those things, okay? So most of you probably don't know what the Sigma Psi postdoc survey is, but basically they went through and they asked postdocs about their satisfaction. Who was happy, who wasn't happy, what did they do outside the group? And then they compared that data to the productivity, right? Who published the most papers? Who went on to successful careers? And what they found is that fellows and mentors who meet at the outset to set goals and define expectations have better outcomes. So if you sit down with your PI and say, hey, let's set the goals, define expectations, you are more likely to be productive. Fellows who have access to career and professional development activities have better outcomes, right? So take advantage of what's out there, right? And again, better outcomes mean papers granted. But what's not on this slide, which shocks me that should be on the slide, is that those who spent time outside of a lab with activities that brought them satisfaction were more productive in lab than those who spent more time in lab without the outside activities. The people whose mental health was best because they took care of it were more productive than those who sacrificed their mental health to work more hours. Okay? More hours does not mean more success. That being said, that doesn't mean that you're going to work 20 hours in the lab and be successful. Research is not a 40-hour-a-week job, right? But it doesn't have to be a 60-hour-a-week job either. In fact, once you get past 50, your productivity starts to tank, right? There are some PIs still figuring this out, so take that in consideration also when you're joining a group. So what I've learned from 15 years more than in graduate education, right? Students can avoid many problems by choosing their thesis advisor wisely. Students can fix many problems by communicating with their mentor. And by communicating, I mean actually learning communication styles, okay? Students who get a lot of mentoring and guidance from their committee members and program directors often do better. And by often, I mean more likely to do better than those who don't. If you're having a problem and you've tried to reconcile it and things don't improve, sometimes changing labs leads to better outcomes than students who stay and are miserable. This is a really hard thing to do, and it shouldn't be done willy-nilly, and it shouldn't be done, well, Phil says sometimes changing labs means I'll do better, so I'll change a lab. What I mean is don't rule it out. If you and a PI are just not getting along and you don't want to be there, in fact, every time you walk in there, you kind of feel like you want to throw up in your mouth a little bit, you should probably consider changing labs, resetting the project, maybe going back a year in time, because the return on that investment for your mental health and your productivity will be worth it, okay? Most mentors do not spend enough time thinking about their students' careers, okay? That means that it's on you. It's your career. You're responsible for your career and professional development needs. It's fair to communicate those to your PI. You should communicate those to your PI. But your PI is not sitting in their office thinking, gee, how can I help my graduate student explore different careers and get the skills they need to advance? They're thinking, golly gee willikers, how am I going to get this next grant funded? All right, so it's on you. You drive it. Students who fall off the radar and become isolated are at a great risk. Okay. Again, when a student comes in and they're struggling, if it's not a communication error, most of the times they don't have a community. They've allowed themselves to become all about the lab, and they don't even have good community there. And take care of yourselves. Really, it's worth the investment. Some of the top trainings that are recommended by our current students, the networking events and workshops. So when we ask students, what's the most useful for you? 25% of them say networking. So learn to network. Career development workshops, like hearing different career talks, thinking about what are the different careers that are out there and what skills do I need to develop. And please understand that we cross out that additional, non-traditional, non-bench careers. We believe there simply are careers. Science careers are good careers, and it doesn't matter what you do. As long as you are fulfilled in it and doing great work, we're proud of you. Right? And Becoming a Resilient Scientist series and our OITE mental health series, 20% almost of students said that this was the top recommended thing they should do. You should enroll, this is a quote, enroll as soon as possible in the Becoming a Resilient Scientist series, right? Not ours. This was actually from a student. We didn't make it up. It really is an awesome series, so you should do it. All right. There's going to be bumps along the way. Everyone should memorize this particular slide. Okay. So this is adapted from a self-leadership book called The 1 Minute Manager. Okay. And this is looking at people as they start new positions and where they fall on this, right? And you always start as an enthusiastic beginner. You come in, you're super excited, you're confident that you can do everything. Turns out you don't actually know a lot. Your competence is pretty low, right? And what you need is you need direction, right? You need a PI that's like, awesome enthusiasm. Let's slow down a little bit and focus on the most important things, right? After this, you become a disillusioned learner. So now your confidence is low because it was high. You thought you knew everything. Turns out you don't need things. And now you're like, oh, I don't know anything, right? But you actually know more than you did before. What you need is support. You need that PI that's going to come alongside you, that mentor that's going to say, hey, you're doing great. We're really progressing here. I know it doesn't feel like it, but we're making progress, right? You move into this cautious performer where now you're actually pretty smart, but your confidence, it wavers a little bit. Sometimes you're like, I got this. And other times you're like, I don't. Again, you still need support, right? Then you become a high achiever. You know everything you need to know in this particular field. You are the expert in your project. Your confidence is super high. What you need is independence, and what you need to do is graduate. And then you're going to graduate. They're going to say, congratulations, doctor, whatever. And then you're going to get a postdoc or a new job, and you're going to go all the way back to the beginning to being that enthusiastic beginner again, right? And you're going to go through this whole process again, okay? This is really, really important, right? Because when you enter that lab in the second year, after you've done rotations, or for those of you who are starting right away in your first year, you're going to be super excited. And then you're going to start actually doing the research in your project, and you're going to think, oh my goodness, what did I do? Okay. In most US-based programs, we call this pit of despair year 3. Okay. In fact, I jokingly call my tissue box in my office my third-year graduate student box. The number of third years who come in and say, gee, I think I made a mistake. I'm failing at everything. And I always say, here's a tissue and understand you're right where you're supposed to be, right? This is the phase of research you're supposed to be in. You are a disillusioned learner. What you need to do is talk to the fourth years who are cautious performers and hear, I was right there. It gets better. This is why community is so important, right? This looks like a lot of resources for you all. So we'll leave it up. Hopefully these YouTube videos are still up. Keep in touch. If you're currently an NIH postback, I would say be on the lookout for the alumni database, but I have no idea when it's coming. But you can always email, right? Considering coming to the NIH as a graduate student, if you are unaware of the individual partnership pathway to the GPP, there's a link right there. You can also email me. I'm happy to talk about it. If you're not at the NIH, please understand that we offer a lot of things on our website that you could probably attend, even if you are not an NIH trainee, even though I don't think I'm supposed to say that. I'm going to do it anyways. All right. Oh, wait, I got to stop sharing. That's what I wanted to do. All right. Okay.